you very much indeed, Mr Ruskell. I now call the final speaker in the open debate, Jim Fairlie, again around 4 minutes. Mr Fairlie.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. And I'd like to congratulate Colin Smith on bringing this members' debate forward. I am very pleased to talk in tonight's debate on the ethical principles of wildlife management. It is clearly an emotive subject and can be extremely divisive, with polarised views from both sides. My aim in speaking tonight is to hopefully add some balance on the basis that I've been involved from both sides. As a youngster, my life was spent outside watching birds and animals with total fascination. I was a dog owner and I kept 2 lofts full of racing pigeons. To me, they were thoroughbreds of the sky. With birds sometimes racing from France and covering over 500 miles in one day, they were an absolute passion of mine for years. For my neighbours, they were vermin that landed on their roofs and dirtied their washing that was hanging out in the line. So one person's passion for pigeons was another person's burden on the washing line. As a young ornithologist, I was absolutely fascinated by all other birds, and it was why I became involved in farming in the first place. The majesty of birds of prey, especially the peregrine falcon, was one of those absolute fascinations that gripped me. The idea of seeing a peregrine falcon in real life was only a dream to a townie like me, but I still used to go out and seek them for many years, but all to no avail. But in that, there was also conflict that came from being a livestock keeper in the shape of racing pigeons, my love and fascination of wildlife, especially birds of prey, and the effects of a sparrowhawk attack on my racing birds. You can imagine the horror of seeing one of your most valued birds being pinned to the ground as a sparrowhawk starts stripping chunks of flesh off its back, and the bird has flown from France from me. The bird had flown from France for me on 2 occasions, and it's one of those life lessons that sticks with you and starts the process of coming to terms with the understanding that not everything is as it seems at first. The lesson was well made as I then made my transition from being a townie to shepherding and sheep farming. And again, my appreciation and love was challenged when I witnessed various fairly horrendous attacks on livestock that were in my charge. Foxes, crows, gulls, ravens and sea eagles are all absolutely beautiful, intelligent animals, but they're also wild animals who play by nature's rules, which by and large are brutal. And I have to say I take great exception to Mark Ruskell's insinuation that sheep farmers' black loss is somehow the sheep farmers' fault. And I also take great exception to the point that he makes where he says that only injured or dead lambs are lifted by sea eagles. That is patently not the case. Now, I've read the 7 principles of ethical wildlife management and absolutely understand the desire to see human and animals coexisting in places where animals are under threat. But the Scottish Government have undoubtedly been at the forefront of wildlife protection while trying to find the balance that is absolutely required to allow farmers and conservationists to protect their respective charges. You've only got to look at the introduction of the sea eagles in the West and the conflicts that still causes, as Mark Ruskell talked about, as does the illegal introduction and subsequent protection of the Eurasian beaver in my constituency. Now, those introductions require careful, balanced management, and as situations develop, that management practice must be adapted. And I'm confident that the Government are always cognizant of those changing circumstances, and as populations change, they monitor the impacts on local communities and local populations of wildlife activity. Now, the Government, as I've said, have shown themselves to be actively working to protect the beauty and diversity of Scotland's ecology, and I welcome that greatly. But I would gently remind everyone that there must be a proper balance for all of those demands on our land. My search for all things wildlife have been satiated by my involvement in farming, especially hill farming. The elusive peregrine became a regular sighting. Buzzards are like sparrows in terms of sightings. Sea eagles were regularly passing through the ground I farmed, and I have witnessed red kites and hen harriers aplenty. All birds that you would not have seen 20 years ago. Now there are huge, far more numbers than what there ever were when I was growing up. What I have seen less and less of is golden plovers, lapwings, curlews, redshanks and oyster catchers, at the same time as seeing an explosion in the number of ravens and other corvids. Their effect on the numbers of ground nesters has been absolutely devastating, and I think it is disingenuous for NGOs to say that the 2 things are not related, because they absolutely are. I have witnessed it with my own eyes. Presiding Officer, protection and balance are equally important, and I urge the Government to continue with the balanced approach that they have so far taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Fairlie.